In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. I bear witness that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted and living Christ, now at the right hand of the Savior as Mahdi, and I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Messiah in our midst in this day of judgment in which we now live. It is in their names I greet my family with greeting words and peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. This will be an interesting meeting up to this point, with the hopes that more believers will come, because it would be important to have the dialogue. And I know you're unable to dialogue because you're at work, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm going between two computers right now. This is
Okay.
actually my first Zoom meeting
Mm-hmm.
on this topic. So yes, this is all new to me.
Do you have enough time just to answer a couple of questions?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Okay. How far into the Dianetics tech have you gone as far as the study? Whether it's just a book, the extension course, how much of the Dianetics have you gone into?
I've done a few lessons, but there have been far and few between, nothing real consistent in it. I've read most of the thicker book,
Okay.
but not consistent. I've had auditing done, but I haven't finished the course of study, to answer the question.
Okay, just to give you a real quick overview of what we've been doing over the past couple of years. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had wanted us to marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme technology, get that wisdom, and then bring that wisdom back to the believers, but bring it back in our language. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we do, the basic premise is, Allah says in the Holy Quran that he's given us a book explaining all things.
Yes, sir.
And if Allah has given us a book explaining all things, then all things would imply that contained in the Holy Quran is the science of the mind. And therefore, the principles, the axioms, the definitions upon which Dianetics is based, we should be able to find that in the Holy Quran, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if we can go into the Holy Quran and find the tech, if we can go into Supreme Wisdom and find the tech, then once we learn the tech of Dianetics and the removal of engrams and the dealing with restimulation and the deal with aberration and key-ins and locks, if we can find that in the Holy Quran, then we can learn that tech, but we can bring it back to the members of the Nation of Islam in particular, in the language of Islam. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And what we have found so far is that when we do what's called word clearing, and we do word clearing with the Arabic words that are found in the Holy Quran, the Arabic words in the Holy Quran, when translated and when cleared and translated, actually connect us with some of the terms, the terminology that's actually used in Dianetics.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, we can use our Holy Quran in a way to remove engrams, to remove demons and devils, and we can use the Holy Quran as an auditing tool. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay. So that's just a real quick synopsis of what we do. You've done coursework at the org, correct?
Yeah, not at the org, just on my own, just reading and answering the questions. And I have, I was assigned someone from the org to review, my answers and correspond that way.
Okay. Are you familiar with what a demo kit is? On the tables, they had these little bowls with like marbles and little pieces of glass and little trinkets in the bowl. Are you familiar with that at all?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, a demo kit is what we used when we were doing coursework, and it helps us to take whatever concept that we're studying that we're having difficulty understanding. We use these physical objects in a way to give the concept 3 dimensions. So we're giving the concept mass so we can kind of see what it is that we're trying to study. And it allows us to gain a better understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So another thing that we do is, as the coursework or the demo kits and the whole science behind the demo kits is taught in a course called the Student Hack. That's a course I'm currently in the process of trying to complete. The COVID kind of put a dampening on that, and I hope to get back into it. But the demo kit is a science that they use to give mass to concepts. And one of the principles of Supreme Wisdom Meets Supreme Technology is that when you look in our problem book and we're speaking about planets and solar systems and galaxies and atoms and all those things that we have been given in our wisdom, we use the universe as a demo kit. The phrase was coined that the universe is Allah's demo kit. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all throughout the Holy Quran, we see where Allah speaks about the clouds and the rain and the earth, and with tracks side by side. And in these things are wisdom for those who understand. It is as if Allah is giving us different aspects of the universe, the planets, the biology, all these things. And these are demo kits that if we study them, it will help us gain a better understanding of the environment around us. But more importantly, all these things are outer manifestations of aspects of our own thinking. So what we do is we take the Dianetics and we take what we learn from Brother L. Ron Hubbard in the Church of Scientology, but we take it and we know that it's rooted in the wisdom of the original man, because he says that this is wisdom that's based on 50,000 years of history. And we know if we go back 50,000 years, that's the original Asiatic people. And we take that information that we learned in the tech, we use the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as given to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and we make that translation into a modern language. So now we can use what we have and translate it into the language of Islam, so we can now bring this back to our people so that we can perform the job that we need to perform. And that is this: as Jesus removed devils from Legion, we are now assigned the task to do the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, with that being said, I see we have Sister Ania. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Ania. Can you hear us? Okay, we'll come back to you. I see we got Brother Timothy. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Timothy.
Walaikum salam. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm fine. All praises due to Allah. Yes,
And
sir.
we have Sister Denise. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine, by Allah's grace. Just so we are aware, the videos that we do now, as I finish the videos, they will be on the YouTube channel. So let me know now if individuals do not want their names on the YouTube video. Let me know now. I'll pause it so you can at least change the name that's shown on the screen. And if you want to change that, I can pause it and then restart it. If not, before the end of the day, this will be on YouTube so that you can go back and review it and study it, share it. Go ahead, Brother Timothy.
Yes, sir. What is the YouTube channel?
It's Supreme Wisdom Meets Supreme Technology.
Okay.
I'll send out the link on on the mailing list. That way you get the exact link. But if you go to Supreme Wisdom Meet Supreme Technology, not only will this be on here, the class we did this past Sunday is
Yeah, I was gonna ask
already
you that.
on the page.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And by Law's grace, we have actually over 100 Zoom meetings up to this point. And slowly but surely, I'm going to strive to go through, clean them up a little bit, and then actually start slowly but surely putting the past videos on there, with the hopes that the believers can study the videos, because we use a lot of Holy Quran. We use the problem book, as what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the problem book. We're going to look at ayats from the Holy Quran. But Wednesday specifically, we connect it all to mathematics. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so since I can't see your smiling faces, I have to go based on, as Allah says in the Holy Quran, the tone of your speech. Okay. So I'm going to be saying that a lot, just to get the tone and get the feel of the class. Yes, ma'am, Sister Tina. How are you?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Wonderful. Another day above ground to try to get rid of some of these demons.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I came on a little late, so I missed the part about the names. Can you repeat that, what you were saying about the names?
Yes. I'm gonna start posting these videos on YouTube so that the believers will have access to the videos. And I wanted to give the believers the opportunity that if you did not want your, well, actually, I don't think even the way the videos, when they go on YouTube, this part will show up. So your name will actually show up on the YouTube video itself until I do my share screen. And so any of the believers that did not want their name to appear on the YouTube video, I was going to give them the opportunity to change the name that's showing on the screen right now. I can pause the video, I can stop the video and then restart it, because I didn't want to put that on the YouTube without at least getting the permissions from the believers for the names to show up. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Can you tell me what my name says?
It says Tina Inkatha Muhammad.
Yes, that's fine. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Just spell my name right.
Oh, well, it's based on how you spelled it.
So that's saying just spell my name right.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So for Wednesdays, because our supreme wisdom teaches us that we're supposed to learn about our miserable condition in a mathematical way. And one thing that I have seen, not only in my own experience, but just based on the years that I have been blessed to be able to teach, is that one of the first things about our miserable condition with regards to mathematics is that we're afraid of mathematics. And one thing we've learned over the course of the past year or so is that we have these mathematical engrams. And some of these mathematical engrams, or we could call them also maybe called mathematical locks, they originate oftentimes in the classroom with teachers that basically stuck a needle in our brain with regards to the study of mathematics. So we had a bad relationship with the teacher, or the teacher may have been condescending. I don't know if some of you remember when we used to do this in the classroom, but do you remember when we called up to the front of the class and you had to work a math problem in front of everybody in the classroom? Does anyone remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you remember what went through your mind as you were walking? Well, no, let's rewind back. When the teacher was getting ready to call on people, what was the feeling that went through the pit of your stomach when she began to look around the classroom? How many of y'all looked away so you wouldn't make any eye contact?
I did.
So we would try to look
Sir.
away and look down. We didn't want to make any eye contact because we didn't want to be chosen to go to the chalkboard, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So then what feeling went through your mind when the teacher chose you to walk up to that chalkboard to work a math problem?
Yeah.
Was it nervous?
Yes.
That was nerves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Could we say that was restimulation?
Yes.
Okay. So then you get to the chalkboard and you're given the problem. And then what went through your mind, if you've experienced this, what went through your mind when you didn't understand how to do the math problem? Did anyone ever experience that?
Mm.
Okay. How many of us were called to the board to work any type of math or science problem and we didn't understand the topic that was covered? Anyone?
Mm. I'm trying to think. I
Mhm,
know I did, but I'm just not recalling.
mhm. A time track, the time track is included,
Occluded. Yes.
okay? But
Yeah,
we can,
I
go ahead. Who's that? Sister Denise?
yes, sir. I I remember not knowing all the steps.
Okay.
So, you know, I finished it, but they wanted to see the steps. How did
Mhm,
I get at it? And it was still stuck in my head, and I couldn't get it out on how I did. I just know that that's the right answer.
mhm.
So I don't know what that is. Is that the needle still stuck in my head? I don't know.
No, that's something to explore. Um, But anytime we were called to the front of the room, if we got whatever assignment we were given incorrect, and we turned around to face the classroom, what were some of the responses we got from our own peers in the classroom?
She don't know.
They would be
Sometimes they would
laugh.
look at, go ahead.
They would be laughing. They would laugh.
Okay, they would laugh, they would make fun.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So could we not say that these are all emotional events that built up over time? And as it built over time, it actually caused us to shy away from the study of mathematics and science.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So hopefully today we're going to use the Dianetics, we're going to use mathematics, we're going to use science and our supreme wisdom and the Holy Quran. We're going to use all these different types of tech. We're going to use science as a demo kit, basically, to get a better understanding of ourselves. And the main thing that I always strive to instruct the believers is that whenever you have a cognition, meaning whenever you have an idea or you have a breakthrough or you have that aha moment, whenever you have that epiphany, if you desire to share that with the group, please share what Allah has blessed you to find or see, because your cognition might be the solution to someone else's problem. Does that make sense? Y'all still with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the floor is always open to receive your feedback, to hear what Allah has blessed you to receive, because the solution to our problems might actually come through what you might experience. More than likely, you're going to go back on your time track. You're going to revisit some things, some thoughts might come through, some ideas might come to mind that you haven't thought about in 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 years. And if that happens, that's good, because that means now, in the language of the tech, you're getting that theta back. You're getting back those, what they call attention units. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now, does anyone have any thoughts, questions, concerns, suggestions, corrections, cognitions, or any wins that they would like to share with the group before we get started? Anything of that nature? Well, Sister Shayla made it. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Shayla. All right. We will get started. I'm gonna do my share screen. Okay. Now, does everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I
sir.
do.
Okay. This is one of the foundational ayats that we use from the Holy Quran. And it says, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. And we have revealed the book to thee explaining all things, and a guidance and a mercy and good news for those who submit. So we start with the premise that if we have a book that explains all things would have to include the tech of Dianetics, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Since the tech is talking about the science of the mind should also be in the Holy Quran. That's number one. And number two, if we look at the 13 rules of instruction given to us in our supreme wisdom, it says in rule number 3 that the lessons that we have received are the fulfillment of all the scriptures, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm paraphrasing it. So when something is the fulfillment of something else, it means that that concept, that thing is designed to bring something into its final stage, okay? Or bring it to another level. That would imply that the lessons that we have received are designed to be the fulfillment of everything that came before that. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, is there anyone here that has not watched that video that the minister, it shows the minister teaching, I believe it's in Los Angeles, where he talks about the importance of the tech and going clear? Is there anyone that has not seen that video? Okay, so everyone has seen that video. It's about an 8-minute video. Okay. So the concept that we're going to deal with today is called the weight of the atmosphere. Now, this actually was a Zoom class that we conducted July 7th of last year. And what I'm striving to do now is go back through and review them and fine tune them and add to them and kind of increase the data that's in them by Allah's grace to get us more in tune with the study of mathematics and science. And we're going to use what we have been blessed to receive to get our mind to that next level. This is going to be based on problem book, question number 7. And the question is asked, if 1/100th of a cubic inch contains 200 million atoms, the total atmosphere weighs 11 2/3 quintillion pounds. 1/3 of 11 2/3 quintillion pounds equals atoms. Mr. Muhammad cracked one atom into 10 million parts. Then Mr. Sharif wants to know how much of the 1/3 of a cracked atom weighs. How many of us remember seeing that problem before?
Yes, sir, I do.
Mm-hmm. Now, what thoughts come to your mind when you, as we were just reading that's one small part of the question, what thoughts came to mind as we were reading that?
I would never be able to solve it.
Right? See that? Anyone else? No other feedback? Okay. I will never be able to solve it. So,
But Brother Lukman,
go ahead.
something else did come to my mind as well.
Mhm.
Being that I have matured a little bit since being in the nation and the technology, I also started relating that problem to other things. The first part of the problem said what?
If 1/100th of a cubic inch contains 200 million atoms, the total atmosphere weighs 11 2/3 quintillion pounds.
Okay, so the 1/100th, I just related it to How to Eat to Live, where swine takes away 3/100ths of
Okay.
a person. beauty. So I heard that in that.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
What came to mind for me was the largeness of the numbers that were given here, and that this is not normally the type of mathematics that we would think in on a daily basis. And as I read it and reread it, I could feel weight pressing down, as if a weight was pressing down on my shoulders. And it made me think of the weight that we carry in our thought process. The weight of sin weighs heavy than the weight of joy. So it made me think of different emotional states and the weight at which they carry, at which that we carry them. And the emotions that are brighter, more joyous, more happy are on the top part of the tone scale. So they rise to, and so they're lighter in weight. Whereas the emotions of anger, depression, boredom, sorrow, all of those type of things are at the bottom part of the tone scale because they weigh heavier. So it made me think of that. And also why these particular numbers, not so much in, it came across as that yes, there's depth in the numbers if we go to deeper levels, but because Master Fard Muhammad knows we start off as babies, not at those deeper levels, then at our earlier stages of development, the numbers here are not so important as Sister Tina mentioned, what do these words represent? What aspects of our life do they represent? What aspects of our development do they represent? So that's what I got out of it.
Yes, ma'am. Now, without going any further, I want to keep in mind, see, a lot of what you just said is all throughout the next slides that we're going to be covering. So you just, in a way, just summed up the whole lesson. Keep in mind, you spoke about emotions and being heavier, correct? And lower tone. And you talk about,
Yes, sir.
and you contrasted that with the higher tones, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hold that thought as we go through. We're going to come to something, and what you just said is going to line up, it's a perfect lineup of what we're going to share today.
Praise be to Allah.
Go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. I was as you were talking, I'm trying to get it on the Zoom, but I was thinking about when Sister Ava said some people had never thought a million, and I was thinking about expanding our consciousness. It's only been at this level or there's this small space. And so the expansion of weight, even with exercising, using weights that you're comfortable with 25 pounds. But if you add 25 more pounds, are you comfortable with that? And the weight that Master Fard Muhammad said, do not let me catch you weighing other than yourself. And I look at it as being able to handle things, because she said nobody thought a million until the minister said a million. Now all these millions, marches coming from other people, but nobody thought a million, to just put it out there, because that that's more than what you've been comfortable dealing with. And it's like, how are you going to do a million if a million people show up. What you, you know, you got to be ready for them. And so, because it never has happened in history,
Mhm.
it was like preparing your mind for it. So that's what I was thinking, sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And also remember, I believe it's A Torchlight for America. I want to say page 48 is where the minister gives us the quote where he says, whoever controls the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activity, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And if we constantly think in low numbers, then the circumference of our activity will be in low numbers.
Mhm.
And in time, within the next couple of weeks, we'll begin to deal with these large numbers from this perspective of what's called scientific notation, because there's a way of handling these large numbers that is just as easy as understanding, smaller numbers. It's just that there's a technique or a certain method that we will learn in order to understand how to deal with and do calculations with numbers that are this large. It's not difficult. Everyone in the room can do it. To learn what's called scientific notation can probably be done within an hour. So God willing, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll go ahead and put together a class. That way we can learn how to do the scientific notation, and then we can begin to go in and look at some of these questions in the problem book. But there was something that Sister Ania had said. It's not so much as us trying to solve these mathematically. The minister says you can do that if you want to. However, these questions, and I'm paraphrasing, these questions in the problem book are geared more towards transforming our mind, getting us to think in a different way. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Denise, you got your hand up again, or was that from the last time? Okay, good. Praise be to Allah.
Brother Lukman,
Yes, is that Sister Shayla?
that's Sister Shayla. I can't get my camera to do what I needed to do, which was to raise my hand. And first I couldn't get it to unmute.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Nevertheless, when you read that problem, something happened in my brain. And I'm thinking of it now. And I said, gee, did I thought of all of that in that split second? When you start reading that problem, I thought, this is a problem for Lukman. But Sister Anya knows this problem. And what if all those numbers don't mean what we think it means? I wonder if we are the atoms that he will be cracking today. Now, it didn't happen this slow that as I'm speaking, it happened that fast in my brain. And then I thought, in the same thought, Brother Lukman is not the only God on this call. We all can solve this. And then I said, remember, you're not that great at math. But in a split second, I had all of those thoughts. And I was wondering how amazing every brain on this call is. Because if I can think all of that to talk my own self out to even begin to see this not as a problem, but not as a problem that I can't solve, but it's something that I can really take on and win.
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of like, wow. And then it would let me, and I said, oh my God, I'm going to forget all of this thought because somebody jump in and answer. But can you imagine how fast our brain goes?
Mm-hmm.
That was just amazing to me. So thank you. Now I'm going to try to unmute myself.
So all that information hit you in an instant, correct?
In an instant. And
Mhm.
all I was trying to do was to do what I always did and say, this problem is not for me. I'll never solve this problem. That's where I would go before today.
Mhm.
I'll never solve this problem. Or this problem doesn't mean what it reads. This is something else. I know this is not what it means, but that's not for me. That's for the smart people. That's how I would put it.
Mhm.
But
So
today I
that kind of
concluded.
shows that thought does travel the average speed of thought is 24 billion miles per second, correct?
Yes.
But now keep in mind, when you have you have stations here on the planet Earth, and you have satellites out in outer space going around, Jupiter and Saturn. Look at the amount of data that they send to that spacecraft and it comes back. Look at how fast that traveled and look at all the data that was transferred. And then when you understand that the human mind works faster than that, that would almost allow us to understand that we have the ability to send and receive information instantaneously. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now, I know, sister, I just want to say this one part. Brother Lukeman won't be cracking anyone's atoms today. By Allah's grace, atoms will be cracked. But also keep in mind, as I do these PowerPoints, this is a prescription that I use to try to heal my aberrated mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
these
sir.
these classes are like self-medication, self-prescription. I take what Allah blesses me to receive and share it with the believers. And then what happens is all of us will help to crack one another. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, Brother Timothy.
Yes, sir. I was just when I was looking at the problem, it does, initially seem overwhelming with the magnitude of the numbers. But I was thinking about when the minister talked about, and I might be make sure I'm saying it right, how many pounds per square inch on the body, and how he explained about the inspiration that has to go in order to handle life's pressure. And I also was thinking about, well, who's actually Mr. Sharif? So maybe you'll get into that as well.
I don't know who Mr. Sharif is. But
Yes,
now
sir.
here's something we could possibly do. If we were to just take the word Sharif and look at it from the Arabic standpoint and clear that term, it's possible. I'm not sure, because some of these I haven't solved. And I mean, I've studied some of the problems in the problem book, and I try to see them from the perspective of, okay, what can I learn about myself through this? But what if Mr. Sharif is a metaphor?
Mhm.
I don't know. I've never met Mr. Sharif, but what if
Yes,
that
sir.
represents something that's within ourselves? Because the word Sharif, when you look at the word Sharif, it's where you get the word sheriff from in
Right.
English, and it has something to do with the law.
Law. That's right.
Okay, so now the question is there a Mr. Sharif within ourselves?
Mm.
So there's many different ways, but the whole point is begin to look at things different than we have looked in the past. And what does that do? That expands the diameter of our knowledge. And what does it do? It expands the circumference of our activity. So now our mind begins to expand beyond these confines. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's certain areas academically, certain things we read, and there's certain things we won't read. There's one book I'm reading right now called The 50th Law. Has anyone ever heard of that? The 50th Law?
No.
There's an individual who wrote a book called The 48 Laws of Power. I believe his name is Robert Greene. He co-wrote a book with 50 Cent, and it's called The 50th Law.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And there's one, I'm paraphrasing it, but there's one quote from that book that stood out for me. And it said that, and I'm paraphrasing, that he reads books that are beyond his vocabulary. I know I'm messing up this quote. He reads books that are beyond his vocabulary or his area of comfort. But what that does is it expands the area of comfort. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Reading
Yes, it
books
does.
beyond where we're comfortable. It's the same as pressing weights. You get comfortable, bench pressing 150 pounds. Once you can do that comfortably, okay, add 5 pounds on either side. So the following week, you might struggle a little bit, but then within a couple of weeks, that becomes comfortable. Okay, add a little more. Within 6 months, instead of bench pressing 150 pounds, you might be bench pressing 200 pounds now. And the same thing happens with our mind, our spirit. If there's exercise to improve the strength of our physical body, there has to be muscle, there has to be exercises to improve our spirit, which is fasting is one thing to improve the spirit. But then I believe math and science, and especially, if you know Brother Lukman, Brother Lukman is a chess fanatic. Math, science, and chess, these are things that improve the thinking and how to calculate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we have to exercise every aspect of ourselves. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't get off mute quick enough. I can barely contain myself. I kid you not, as you explained about Sharif, I had thought that in the instance right before you said it, that it could represent some aspect of ourselves. But Sister Shayla's comment reminded me of another part of problem number 7 that I wanted to say earlier. And that was about the fact that the second sentence says 1/3 of 11 and 2/3 quintillion pounds equals atoms. And that struck me is the fact that it didn't say how many atoms it equals, it just said atoms. So that again led me to think that, again, it's not so much the mathematics here, but more so what these terms represent. However, as the discussion continued and Brother Timothy made his comment, I was thinking again about equals atoms. My mind it went back to A equals B. If A equals B and
B equals C.
B equals, was it C?
Mm-hmm.
Then A equals C.
Yes.
Is that right? So that came up in my mind, and then I started. My mind just automatically started putting this into a mathematical formula of like total atmosphere, T equals 11 and 2/3, and then the next line would say, would come to 1/3 of 11, so equals A. Just it started the process. I didn't complete it, but it started that process of thinking of the problem in a mathematical way in order to come to whatever the solution is.
So you begin to translate this verbal problem into an algebraic equation, basically.
Yes.
You started that problem. Now, when was the last time you did that?
Well, it's starting to happen more often, I'll put it that way, but it in the back of the mind, the process starts. We just don't take enough time out or slow ourselves down enough to think the whole thing through and actually work it as you would a math problem. Give the time to what the steps are and coming up with the because as you're working out a math problem, you solve for one part of the equation, and then once you get that, you take that into the next line to help you solve the next line of the equation. So it's not, you don't jump from step 1 all the way to the solution. You have to follow the process and the steps. And if we look at our life problems that way, then we can start to see what the mathematical algebraic expressions are that will solve our real life problems. So you can start plugging in the problems in our community, such as, let's just say, teenage pregnancy and the percentage of teens that are pregnant that are from single family homes, or the number of teens that are pregnant who's come from a family where the father abandoned the family. You know, those are all of that can now be put into mathematical formulas and equations that will help us be able to reverse teen pregnancy.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is the mind thinking in a more mathematical way to solve life problems.
So when we look at the problems in our personal life in a mathematical way, as you just described, what gets removed from the problem? What gets removed from the situation?
Our fear of mathematics?
Well, fear, which means what's being removed as we begin to think mathematically, what's removed? Emotion.
Yes, sir.
Because we have the problems in our life right now. It's not that we don't have the ability to solve it. It's just that our emotions get caught in the way. And when emotions come up, you can't be emotional and then think mathematically at the same time. So when we talk about God was a burning bush, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan explained it in a way to say that God does experience emotions, but he doesn't allow his emotions to determine his thinking, correct? I'm paraphrasing. So when we begin to look at the problems in our life in a mathematical way, then we don't get caught up in emotion. We just look at the variables. What part of the equation do I have control over? What do I have to add to this equation to get the desired outcome? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So we
sir.
have to apply mathematics to life.
Yeah, it makes sense to me when I look at the different types of emotions that we have serve a purpose if they're used correctly at the proper time and in the proper what's the word, quantitative capacity. I can't think of the right word I need to say. So looking at what you just said about Allah experiences those emotions, but he has them controlled so that he can use them when it's applicable to apply that emotion to achieve the result that he requires. Okay. So he made in order to, when you have an idea, okay, if you just passively sit there and think about your idea and it's like, oh, that would be nice. Yeah, be great if I could do that. You know, as opposed to, that's a great idea. I'm going to make it happen. I can do, this is something I believe I can do it. I'm going to start researching everything about this particular idea so that I can bring it into fruition. That's enthusiasm. Okay, so that type of emotion begins to fuel the idea so that you take the idea to the next level and begin to start working out a plan, as opposed to just leaving it in the state of, oh, that would be nice. And then it becomes, as the Quran says, a passing idea and floats on away from you, and then you forget about it in a day or two. The idea is gone and forgotten about. And so it never comes to a fruition. So in that sense, I'd say that emotions come into play, and we have to learn how to control each and every emotion so that we can apply it in its proper time. That's what I'm getting out of what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah. Praise be to Allah. Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. I came in my office so I could put the phone up under my magnifier. So I'm reading the problem and I'm using substitution, the law of substitution. Is that what you told us before? There's the law of substitution in mathematics.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm using that. And while reading this, I'm seeing it differently. I'm not seeing it as a mathematical problem that has to be solved mathematically, which I thought I could never do. I'm
Mhm.
seeing it now as I'm seeing Master Farad Muhammad in it, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan in it, because I'm looking at the numbers and what they represent. And yeah, and I'm seeing the believers in it. And I think Sister Shayla said it earlier. And at the end, where I see then Mr. Sharif wants to know how much the 1/3 of a cracked atom weighs. And in adding the law of substitution into that, Sharif, the Holy Quran, I put instead of Mr. Sharif, Sharif, Holy Quran is called the Sharif. Is that another name for the Holy Quran, Sharif?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, and I looked at Mr. and I said, okay, the M is the 14th letter in the alphabet. And is that Abraham? The chapter 14 is Abraham in the Holy Quran.
Yes, it is.
And the R is the 18th letter in the alphabet, and that's the cave, right? Chapter
Okay.
18.
Yes, ma'am.
So it made me think of Abraham, the seed of Abraham, which is us, the so-called American Negro, and the R, the cave, and how we follow the messenger, the minister, how we follow the teachings. And he wants to know how much the 1/3 of a cracked atom weighs. And I don't know, the 1/3 isn't 1/3 of the book for the minister.
I think you might, I think, if I'm not
I think I
mistaken,
heard that
anyone
as
can
well.
correct us, I think it was 2/3 was for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and
Elijah
1/3 was for that
Muhammad,
other fella.
Yes, for the fella. And he'll worry about that later, but that's the minister, that 1/3. And so how, and then looking at the swan song and how the minister is trying to get us to get the sin off of us. And somebody was saying that earlier, Sister Ania. So I'm seeing more of the teachings in this problem. I just want to say that. I can't break it all down of what I'm seeing, but I'm seeing more than I ever have, ever in my life in regards to the problem book.
All right, here's your assignment, Sister Tina. This is your homework assignment. Write down what you're seeing in problem number 7. Write down what you see in this.
Okay.
Once you finish writing down what you see, go back to the beginning and go over it again and pick up whatever additional data you can contact. Because I can almost guarantee that when you go back and read back through the problem and read back through what you have written, more data is going to come to surface.
Yes, sir. Praise be to.
So now as you do this, or as we do this in anything that we study, one thing that Mr. L. Ron Hubbard says is when you do that and you get more perceptics and more data is coming up, what you're doing is you're getting access to more theta. If you look at this from the perspective of Dianetics, because the language evolved from Dianetics forward, the language evolved. If you look at just from Dianetics, we could say that you're gaining back more attention units. But attention units and theta, we're talking about the same thing. In the language of the nation, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan used the word life force in the book called 7 Speeches. So life force and theta is the same thing, correct?
Yes, sir.
So as we study and we get more data, what are we getting back? We're getting back more life force. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And as we're getting back more life force, if Allah is the life force, then as we study and get back more of the theta or the life force, what are we getting back more into our life right now?
The God of
We're
self.
getting more in contact with the God within. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to add the number 7. This is number 7. And that number 7,
Mhm.
it follows the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I noticed that about the number 7.
All
Yeah.
right. And 7 is a prime number, but that's a whole nother
Oh, wow.
lesson.
Mm.
So then the question becomes, can we use the atmosphere as a demo kit to obtain a knowledge of self? So can we look out into the atmosphere at any time and look at it as if it's a mirror that's placed there to teach us something about ourselves? What you'll see is what we're going to share from the perspective, we're going to deal with meteorology. There was a key point that Sister Anya brought up at the very beginning that's going to tie in. So if we look at problem number 13, which is what? After learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, it stands true, and you can always prove it in no limit of time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's an equation. Because the word mathematics is like a word that encompasses many, many different aspects of mathematics, correct?
Say
For
that
example,
again.
so the word mathematics can represent many aspects of mathematics.
Hmm.
Okay, so if I use the word algebra, is that still mathematics?
Yes, sir.
If I use the word calculus, is that mathematics?
Sir.
So Sister Tina, can we use the law of substitution and say after learning calculus, which is Islam, Islam is calculus, it stands true, you can always prove it in no limit of time?
Yes, sir.
Can we say after learning Islam, which is algebra, and algebra is Islam?
Yes, sir.
Can we say after learning Islam, which is physics, and physics is Islam?
Yes, sir.
All that stands true, correct?
Yes, sir.
So then can we also say after learning meteorology, which is Islam, and Islam is meteorology?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So then it becomes what? A meteorological theology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-mm-mm.
If we're studying physics, it's a theology of physics. If it's algebra, we could say an algebraic theology, correct?
Yes, sir.
So then what we study from the perspective of physics, quantum physics, calculus, trigonometry, all these things become a study of who? Ourself and our relationship with Allah God. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now the question is, based on question number 7, what gives the atmosphere its weight? Now, Allah says in the Holy Quran, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, surely Allah wrongs not the weight of an atom. And if it is a good deed, he multiplies it and gives from himself a great reward. So we have an ayah in the Holy Quran where it mentions the weight of an atom, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now the Arabic, here's where we do some word clearing. Weight of an atom in Arabic is mithqala thartin. Mithqala comes from the root word thakala, which means to be heavy, to burden, to oppress, or suppress. Anyone see any Dianetic concepts in that?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. L. Ron Hubbard uses the term heavy engram. Have you heard that before?
Heavy engram.
A heavy engram is nothing more than an engram that has a lot of charge in it. Now, those of us that have been audited, have you ever been audited and you almost went through the whole box of Kleenex that was right there because you cried so heavy? Has anyone ever experienced that? Well, I know I did. That was a heavy engram.
Okay.
Okay. We've seen in Dianetics where it talks about suppressors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what does the engram do? What does the demon circuit do? It suppresses. How does it suppress? A demon circuit is that recording that's in our brain. The way it's given to us in the Holy Quran is in Surah 114, the whispering of the slinking devil who whispers into the hearts of men from among the jinn and the men. So we have we have the language whispering of the slinking devil. Dianetics calls them demon circuits. Interesting thing is, when you look in the book Dianetics, L. Ron Hubbard says some people had as many as 4 demons. Our lessons say we have to murder 4 devils, correct?
Yes, sir.
So there's some ARC or agreement between the Supreme Wisdom lessons and Dianetics. It's just that you have to look beyond the language and the terminology. See, we get caught up on terminology and we think that the technologies are different. No, it's just that the languages are different, but they're saying the same thing. It's no different than me saying, if I said to Sister Shayla, if I say "Que hora es?" your response would be what? If my Spanish is working right, "Que hora es?"
What time is it?
Okay, but if I say it in French, I say "Quelle heure est-il?" It sounds like I'm saying 2 different things, but when you get past the language, really saying the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the teaching of the Most High Elijah Muhammad is the fulfillment of all of it. And as we study the tech, we'll realize that there's truths that are contained in the tech that we can now, once we understand it, we can find it in what we already have. And that's why the minister says that what L. Ron Hubbard has given us is like a key to open up a safe where there's a lot of riches. I'm paraphrasing, but you've heard that before, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Open up our supreme wisdom, which is like a safe, and there's wealth contained in it, but we couldn't get to it. Now we can get to it. How do you know? Because now we're looking at problems in the problem book and we're having these cognitions that's doing what? Expanding the diamond of our thinking. So now the circumference of our activity is going to change, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So going back to the weight of the atom. If you look at the word tharatin, which is from the root word thara, it means small particles, atoms, or specks. So now if you look at this, the weight of an atom, let's look at this from the perspective of a heavy burden that's composed of small parts. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of Dianetics, you know, if we have an engram, if we have these locks, these are on what's called chains, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So each one of these links in a chain is a small piece of aberration, correct?
Yes, sir.
But these small pieces of aberration, and each small piece controls the attention units or insists, what L. Ron Hubbard used the word insist, like assist. Each one of these moments in time contains life force. Then what happens is the accumulation of these events going back over time, all of these small events that seem insignificant at that point in time gather together in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. And that's why the engram itself has so much charge in it. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yes, sir.
Because he says the locks are built upon the engram. Once you remove the engram, what happens? All the locks, boom, 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 boom. He said pretty much they explode because you've gone to the root, or what's called the basic, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has anyone ever experienced a similar situation like that where you had that aha moment, and then once you realize a certain thing from your past and you realize the truth of it, it relieved a burden from your mind? Has anyone ever experienced that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then did you hear Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 8 in there? What makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquake? It gathers in the fine mist that the naked eye cannot detect.
Yes, sir.
That's an equation.
Mhm.
That's a
Mm.
principle. That teaches us a real important thing, that the burdens in our life are burdens because they are the accumulation of things over time that seem insignificant. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
It's
Yes,
just
sir.
one way of looking at it. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
So the treasure in the supreme wisdom, it's the thought just came to me because I'm really like Sister Ania, can't contain it. I have to hold myself down. The treasure that's in the supreme wisdom is I'm starting to see the treasure as you're speaking now by way of understanding the teachings better through the technology
Mhm.
of Dianetics and Scientology, through the technology of L. Ron Hubbard that the minister gave us as a tool.
It's a tool.
A tool. Praise be to Allah.
Mhm.
So I'm starting to see the treasure. Because Supreme Wisdom, the problem book, was always in the past a problem for me.
Mhm.
But now I can't wait to get to my homework assignment.
But now what is the real treasure, Sister Tina? What's the treasure?
The treasure is understanding. Understanding what's in the supreme wisdom for me.
So what does that do to your self-perception?
For my self-perception, it's, Sister Shayla said it earlier, it's making me see more of my God self, a part of me that I never saw before. I never thought that I would ever be thinking on the level that I'm thinking on now. It's a lot of gook, as the minister called it, dross, is being removed.
So could you say that we're now getting rid of the rusty locks?
Yes, sir.
That's question number 31 in the problem book, the rusty locks, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Oh, praise be to Allah. Thank you for that. Because see, when just hearing your tone go up, that brings my tone up. So now, and I'm sure it raises the tone in the room. So just in us going through the problem book, what are we doing? This is a type of auditing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Sister Denise. You got the floor.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it was like you said, what are we getting back? And I was thinking, our mind.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been out of our mind and we're getting it back. And I, seeing how the numbers relate to life, how you plug in the numbers and they relate to life, just like the chessboard. Something was happening and I said, okay, it's their move now. And all of a sudden I saw a big chessboard and we all making moves, but it's like, okay, you need to stay where you at now, not that one, think about going somewhere else, and how it relates to life. The numbers relate to life, and now, it's not just the numbers, woo, that woo when you see numbers, big numbers, but it relates to something. What was that you said? Something that it's a fulfillment of something you said about the fulfillment.
Our lessons are the fulfillment of everything.
Yes. Yes. But understanding how to understand them in a mathematical way will help bring about a release in Dianetics and a release of the mind. Because I experienced that when I was audited. It was like, I don't know, like years of whatever was listed off of me just with that one thing. So yes, sir, I agree with you. That's all I'm saying.
Praise be to Allah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give you something else that just caught my eye as you were speaking. This ayat says, and if it is a good deed, If it is a good deed, he multiplies it and gives from himself a great reward. That's what it says, right? Multiplying and giving a great reward, correct?
Mhm,
Look at
mhm.
the number of the surah and the ayat. What do you see?
Where is it?
4.
440?
Mhm.
You ever remember the minister talking about 440? That's the atone,
8 tone.
Mhm.
440 vibrations per second.
Right.
I do that because it helps me to remember where these ayats are in the Holy Quran. I try to look at the number, make sense of the number, and connect it to the ayat. That's just the way my mind looks at the numbers.
Yes, sir. Mm.
Okay. So the weight of an atom is very small. The atom is the basic unit of weight with regards to the atmosphere. So now, when you look at if you have a large amount of atoms, then the sum of those atoms could produce a heavy weight, correct?
Yes, sir.
So things that are heavy, things that are misunderstood, are heavy and misunderstood. And if you look at what makes up those concepts, they're made up of elements, and there's something in the element that is misunderstood, correct?
Mhm. Yes,
So all we
sir.
have to do is pinpoint the one or two things that we don't understand, and then the concept is not heavy anymore, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So this same concept applies to the mind with regards to anything that we're learning. If we take a concept, remember that we have the concept of flow, ridge, and dispersals. When we understand something, our mind flows. And then when we hit that misunderstood, that's called the ridge, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right.
And that ridge, that misunderstood, the way that Brother L. Ron Hubbard speaks about it is that the misunderstood is the flow of your thought in opposition to the flow of the concept that we're studying. It's these two flows that hit and produce a ridge. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And whenever we study something and we can't understand it, we have a tendency to do what? Oh, the hell with it. I don't want to even study that no more, correct?
Right.
Right,
That's
right.
the dispersal. You have the
Mhm.
flow, the ridge, and the dispersal. And the ridge is only based on either there's something that we misunderstand or something where we actually lack understanding. So there's either understanding is missing or understanding is correct. Incorrect. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So individual perceptics are like atoms. So when you look at the engram is made up of hundreds of perceptics, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So when we did the auditing, before we took them try to take them down the time track, we might say, well, let's go back to when you ate dinner last night. Are you there? Okay, start from the beginning. And it's okay, now what color is? We don't say what color was, because then you remember it. We say, what color is the fridge? What are you eating? We're speaking in what? The present tense.
Mhm.
And every perceptic that we pick up is an element of that engram. And that's how we build the picture to make sure that the mind is operating properly. Once we go through what did you eat last night, then we go, okay, go back to a moment of pain. So we know you have the ability to pick up the perceptics. So now let's go back and see if we can start going back this time track. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. And then as we audit, what do? We're building up perceptics, right? We're asking questions to build perceptics, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
The perceptics gather in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. And then we get to a certain point when that person does what? They release.
The release.
What
Yes.
is that? That's the distilling back. Can you see the lesson, question number 8 in auditing?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Based on the current of atmosphere, it dispels back.
Distills.
Distills back.
To the earth.
That's the release of charge. How did that take place? You had to build up the perceptics and the fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. See, these lessons represent principles that can be applied to many different things.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so one perceptic may not have a large amount of weight to it. So if you just knew that the refrigerator was yellow, that doesn't mean anything. But it's everything that took place in that kitchen that might be at the root of what's holding this person stuck on the time track. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so then you build up who was in the kitchen, what color was the table? Do you remember? Can you hear what is being said? Was it daytime? Was it nighttime? What time is it? You know, so we're building up these perceptics, and then eventually all these things will click, and then the person will be right in the engram, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay,
That's
go ahead,
correct.
Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. I'm really seeing what you're saying, because I believe I'm very occluded. My perceptics are very occluded. And so I have to do exercises to counter that. But I know I have the ability, because the other day I was in the kitchen and there's a yellow fold-up chair that I have, and it's usually in my way when I'm going in the refrigerator and taking something out. So I moved the chair out the way, several hours before I was doing what I was doing in the kitchen. So I'm moving around and I'm being very careful coming out of the refrigerator with whatever I'm coming out of, holding it with both hands, because I'm seeing the chair, the yellow chair sitting there, actually seeing it. So I'm moving so as not to hit it and drop what I have in my hand. And I did that about 2 or 3 times, in and out of the refrigerator. Then I turned around and the chair wasn't there. The chair was folded up, because I said, oh, I had folded that up. I never put it back. So it made me understand that I do have the ability to see what happened in the past, even though it was just a couple of minutes or whatever. I saw the yellow chair there. See, so yeah. So it gives me hope that I can recall, successfully.
Oh, yes, ma'am. We're gonna get there. If it didn't work, the minister wouldn't have given it to us.
Yes, sir.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
So now when you look at, so it is the collective of the perceptics, like the atoms in our mind, which is the atmosphere, that causes the rain, hail, snow, which are the emotional states. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
So we're using Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 8, but we're using the principles that are found in that question, what makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquake, and we're using that to better understand the process of how Dianetics acts, or the process of auditing, how it actually works. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you say that again?
We're taking law question number 8 of Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, which is what makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquake. We study that question, that lesson. We're extracting principles from that lesson, and then we can apply those same principles to better understand how the process of auditing works.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay,
Okay.
because when you look at the way that problem is set up, it says that the water is drawn up into the atmosphere in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect.
Drawn up into the Earth's rotation. Mhm.
The Earth's rotation and gravitation and fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. But as it goes up into the atmosphere, what it does, it's accumulating in different currents.
Mhm.
And based on the temperature of those currents, it distills back in the form of drops of water or drops of ice.
Mhm.
But the principle is, look at it as a cycle of action. The start would be, it's pulled up into the atmosphere.
Okay, so
Okay. You have the start, then you have grow. The grow part of the cycle of action could be accumulates.
Mhm.
And then the conservation would be it gathers. The decay could be it distills back. And then the end part would be drops of water or drops of ice, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But now auditing works the same way. Because when you're auditing, what are you doing? You're gathering data
Mhm.
in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect, meaning what? The pre-clear is not aware of the methodology that you're using to even get into their mind. So you're gathering data in a way that the naked eye can hardly detect. As you're gathering this data, what's happening? It's accumulating in the mind of the pre-clear. And based on the condition of their mind, when the data accumulates, eventually it will distill back. If you look at the pre-clear's body language, they start to get fidgety. You'll see that chin start to wiggle. You know, you see that chin wiggle. When that chin starts to wiggle, you know the charge is right there. Have you ever seen that before?
Yes.
You see the lips start quivering.
Yeah.
When that chin starts to working, oh, now it's like, oh, I gotta push
Got
it
it.
through now. I gotta push it because the charge is right there. And then what happens? It distills back. That's the release of the charge. Okay. When you look at storm clouds, what happens? You have the thunder and the lightning and then the rain, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with a pre-clear? Didn't you get the thunder, the lightning, and the rain?
I
They
was
get-
not pretty clear.
You were the thunderous one, huh?
Right.
You know, the thunder is the sound.
Mhm.
Sometimes the pre-clears can be very boisterous.
Mhm.
And then you have the lightning, and then you have the rain. Those are three things that you get in Dianetic auditing as well, but just on an allegorical or metaphorical level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Ania.
As you're saying that, Brother Lukman, I'm thinking about the actual whole process of the mist being pulled up into the atmosphere and forming clouds, and then the distillation that takes place in the form of rain, hail, or snow as it comes, breaks up, and then after the storm, then everything clears and the clouds go away. But in thinking of the cloud and the atmosphere, when we go outside and it's a cloudy day, we often, in our mind process, as we've been taught from children, it's like the sun is no longer there, it's gone away. But really, the sun is still there, it's still shining. So our bright, I'm saying that once the storm passes and it's cleared away, then the clouds go away to reveal that the sun that was always there. And so I'm thinking of our God state is that sunny disposition, which is always there, but we've allowed these other perceptics along the way cloud our sunny disposition. And it's turned into these engrams and locks and secondaries and all of these other things that we go through. And I'm also connecting that with the tone scale too, that you could say the barrier between that sunny side of the tone scale and the stormy side of the tone scale is that barrier, is that cloud there. But once we clear up those negative perceptics, and that whole process of going up the tone scale and the distillation takes place, and we bust up those engrams, those locks, and those secondaries, and they get refiled, meaning that they get distilled back into a clearer form so that they no longer bother us, they're moved out of the way, and our sunny disposition, the higher side of the tone scale, shines through.
And that's meteorological theology.
Yes.
Is that it, Sister Ania?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you for that. That was you just took me back on my time track. when I was in college, I had left what's called there was the student union, and I was catching the bus to go because I lived off campus my last year of college, and I remember it was kind of rainy. And it's funny that you said it because it just brought back this memory. I was waiting for the bus. There was someone standing to my right, and we talked about the rain. And I remember saying, yeah, I don't like the rain because the sun's not out. And the person says the sun is always out. You just have to look past the clouds. That always stuck with me. It's
Wow.
just, we're talking about 30 years ago, but I still remember that one little statement that they said. You got to just look past the clouds. But you just brought that back up.
Praise be to Allah.
To Allah. So we're just now getting to the learning objectives. Okay, so we've already started the problem book, the significance of the atmosphere. I think this might have been just out of order. Like I said, I haven't done this one since last year. The atmosphere is a demo kit to represent the mind. I want to hit the refuge prayer, God willing, to show how this tied. I forgot that this was in here. Okay. Problem book. This says that this book teaches the lost foundation of Islam a thorough knowledge of our miserable state of condition in a mathematical way when we are found by our Savior, W.D. Fard. Okay. So the purpose. Yeah, that what we just did was last year, that was just a brief introduction. This year, that was the whole subject matter. It just shows how things evolve. It says the problem book is giving us to learn about our miserable state of condition. It is designed to give us a thorough knowledge, and we will obtain this knowledge in a mathematical way. So what is our miserable state of condition? What is a thorough knowledge? And what is a mathematical way? Those are 3 points we're going to hit real quick because I see time is upon us. So a miserable state of condition, we're talking about distress and unhappiness. Now, does anyone have any type, either great or small, distress or unhappiness in their life?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Mhm.
And I would hate to see where we would be if we did not have the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, along with not having the tech or the assignment that was given to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. How many of us can see how having this information has actually helped us get through some real tough times in our life?
Oh, yes, sir.
I would be dead. Would
Wow.
be dead.
Yeah, I understand that. So when you talk about a miserable state, it's just Donnie gave you a thumbs up, definitely. This miserable state is synonymous with the word aberrated as well as restimulated. Okay, so here again, we have some terminology that has ARC, which is affinity, reality, and communication, which is the same as saying agreement with the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and our supreme wisdom lessons. It's also synonymous with the word depressed or comfortless. Okay. State is a condition of mind. Okay, so we have a state of mind that's aberrated. Are there any clears in the room, or are we in a room full of aberrated people?
Aberrated on this.
Aberrated, sir.
Okay, all right. And the most aberrated might be the one that's doing the presentation today.
Imagine what we'll do in a few days.
Say what?
Imagine what we'll all do in a few days.
We can go crazy overnight, right?
Mhm.
It says any of various conditions characterized by definite quantities in which an atomic system may rest. Now, I'm bringing this in because we're gonna use the atom as a demo kit to show how you can use chemistry to understand Dianetics because of that word state. Okay. In chemistry, you have what's called a ground state, and you have something called an excited state. I have a little brief video we're going to watch, but as we're going to go through it, I'm going to pause it to show the correlation. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
State also means rank, which here we go, tone scale has different levels, correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So in chemistry, you have what's called ground state versus excited state. Okay. Again, I'm going to pause it to see the correlation.
Hi, in this video, we're looking at the difference between ground state for electrons and excited state for electrons. And I just want to start with this video of my dog, Tenley, running in the hose, which he just seems to love. He gets crazy hyper and loves to run around when we're watering the plants or the yard. And then usually not 5 minutes later, he's asleep on the couch. And so these two stages of him being crazy like this with little gremlin face, we would consider that to be an excited state for Tenley. And then when he's sleeping on the couch, that'd be a ground state for him.
Okay, now, quick question. Excited state and ground state. What would the excited state represent in Dianetics?
Emotions, aberration.
Yes. So excited state, we could say represents the aberrated state, and the ground state represents what?
Analytical state.
Analytical state, or what from the
Release.
perspective of Islam?
Oh,
No, someone was about to say something. Was that you, Brother Timothy?
Ground state.
I said release, that's all.
Release, yes, we could say that. From the
Peace.
perspective of Islam, we could say, "Oh, soul at rest."
Right. At peace.
Excited state is uncivilized,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
savage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you see where we're going with this, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, Brother Lukman,
yes.
that is why people, when we go into the nation, they ask us, what's wrong with you? What happened to you? Because we went from that state to a whole different state.
Yes, we went from an excited state to a ground state.
Mm-hmm.
And pose that same question at the end of the clip so we can further drive home the concept to add some mass to your question. But that's what happens. We go from an excited state to a ground state. Okay.
Mhm.
Atoms are just the same way. If you give them something to give them some energy, they're going to slip momentarily into an excited state, but they always return to a ground state. So
Okay, he just said, if you give them some energy, they're going to slip into an excited state for a short period of time, but then they'll return to a ground state, correct?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Okay, so has anyone ever given you some energy and caused you to slip into an excited state, quote unquote aberrated? And then after the situation, when things kind of tone down, you slip back to your ground state? Has that ever happened?
Yes, sir.
And sometimes in your ground state, did you ever think, I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe I said that, right?
Yes, sir.
Because
Yes,
when
sir.
it happened, you're what? You're in an excited state. But when the energy had dissipated, you returned to your ground state, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
here's what an atom looks like in ground state. Let's say this is neon, 2 + 8 electrons, it's 10 electrons.
Okay. Each one of those circles represents what's called an orbital, and that's where the electrons are. Okay. So if you see more circles go out, correct?
Mm.
Right.
Okay. So only a certain amount of atoms can fit in a certain amount of the orbitals. So I want you to understand those dots represent electrons. Okay.
So if I had 2 electrons in the first shell and 8 in the second shell, and let's say I'm just going to add some energy here, usually in the form of heat. You see that 2 electrons from the second shell just jumped out to the third shell. Now I'm pausing this in time. It doesn't stay that way. Right now it's in an excited state. And so if I rewrite the electron configuration, it's 2.
Now, I don't want us to get too caught up on the electron configuration, but just looking at what takes place. Imagine Imagine. Now he said energy comes in and kicks out these electrons to the other shells, right?
Right.
Okay, now watch this. What if each one of those circles represents a different family member from your past, a family member? When the energy hit that atom, that electron popped up to the next orbit, it would be as if a certain part of your personality just kicked up to the personality of someone from your past, correct?
Correct. I see
These
that.
shells are also called valences,
Mhm.
okay? And in Dianetics, we know a valence is a personality, correct?
Yes.
So when we're aberrated, what happens? We're in the valence of somebody else, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So when we're in the valence of someone else, we take on the characteristics of someone else. We either say what they say or we do
Yep.
what they do, correct?
Correct.
Has anyone
Yeah.
ever said, you know what, when you get a certain way, you act just like Big Mom,
Mhm.
Mhm.
or you just act just like Uncle so-and-so, or you act just like Aunt so-and-so, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So when we look at this from the atomic level, we can study the atom. So at the same time, we're learning about the atom, we're learning about Dianetics, but who are we also learning about?
We're learning about ourselves.
We're learning
Ourselves.
about ourselves, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, so what happens is the energy comes in, it kicks the electrons out. And then when the atom is in an excited state, it acts other than itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't the same thing happen to us when energy comes our way? It kicks us up. Sometimes we say, you know, you just bump me up another notch,
Yes, sir.
and then you don't want me to be that person,
Right.
because when we're that person, what state are we in? We're in what? An excited state. Okay.
-6-2, because 2 electrons from the second shell move to the third shell. So that's why I have that 2-6-2 configuration. Now, like I mentioned, it doesn't stay this way forever. It actually only stays this way for a short period of time.
See, when you hit an atom with energy and it kicks those electrons, because those electrons are in an excited state, eventually they will come back and that atom will begin to act the way that it's supposed to act. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that's just, we're not going to watch this whole video, but that's just a small little snippet of how we can take the atom and we can understand a concept like ground state versus excited state, but we can put it in the language of Dianetics, we can put it in the language of Islam and learn something about ourselves. Go ahead, Brother Timothy.
Yeah, that going back from the excited state, it kind of made me think about in the prayer where it says it withdraws after its whisper. That brought that to my mind about the sleeping devil.
Wait, say that again?
Withdraws after its whisper.
Okay, withdraw, I mean, it's coming back.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes that's another one. Thank you for that one, brother.
Wow.
So we won't go through the whole atom, but that's just a little piece of it. So thorough knowledge. Thorough means carried through to completion. Means marked by full detail. Complete in all respects. So when we try to get to a stage of clear, what we're doing is we're clearing up our time track. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We have a thorough knowledge of ourselves because we know everything on our time track and everything has been refiled, correct?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
I just wanted Brother Timothy to expand a little bit in what he just said.
Okay, go ahead, Brother Timothy.
In the prayer, when it talks about the slinking devil withdraws after his whisper, that whispers into the hearts of the men, from the jinn and the men.
Okay.
I just thought about the fact that he said that how it goes back to a different state after the energy comes in and how the whisper, it withdraws after a certain point. It comes in and it withdraws. So that's what I was thinking about when I saw that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did that clear it up, Sister Shayla?
But this is this is a question that I have always had. You know, this, who whispers into the heart of jinn? Who whispers into the heart of men from among the jinn and the men?
Uh-huh.
So in Seven Speeches, he clarifies a lot, but so what part of me is being the jinn and the men
Okay.
and the devil? Like, that's a concept that I,
Okay. Here's how I understand it. Okay. When you deal with the whispering of the slinking devil, okay, who whispers into the hearts of men from among the jinn and the men, does that make sense?
yes,
The jinn is represented by a whispering devil, and the men is represented by a whispering devil, correct?
Yes.
yes, I think.
Okay. The way I understand it is the jinn represents that whispering devil that's within me. The
Mhm.
men represents another individual who has their whispering devil, and they are whispering into my ear. So we're talking about an internal devil and an external devil.
Oh. Huh.
So,
Go ahead.
if you go back on your time track, has your internal whisperer ever whispered for you to do something that you shouldn't have done?
Yes.
Like eat the whole thing of ice cream. Has
Right.
okay.
Yes.
So that was your jinn. We could say, and this is just my understanding. This is how I look at it. So we have an internal whisperer.
Mhm.
Has anyone ever said, you know what, Sheila, let's go out to eat and just eat all, they whispered to you based on what they knew that you enjoyed. And then deceptive intelligence said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, it has happened actually.
Okay, so the whispering of the slinking devil who whispers into the hearts of men from among the jinn is within you, meaning that demon circuit based on the individuals from your time track, whatever that recording is that's in your brain, that's your jinn. Those are your devils. And then if you have certain, and that's why we're told certain individuals, we can't hang out with them no more. Because if we go hang out with certain people, they'll pull us back into what we used to do.
Right.
So now you think you're better than me now. Well, you
Right.
did that before. And now out of guilt, we fall back, correct?
No.
No, I'm saying, does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the jinn and the men to me is the internal demon circuit and the external demon circuit that belongs to someone else, but they're trying to whisper to me to get me to do what we used to do, basically.
Okay.
Okay, does everyone understand that? Okay.
Yeah. There's also in Closing the Gap where the minister explains it too.
Mhm.
I remember what page it's on, but it's also in Closing the Gap where he explains chapter 113 and 114.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and do a little search on that and pull that up.
Yes, sir.
What was that page again, sis? I'm sorry.
She didn't give the page.
But
She
she didn't
don't
give
know.
a page. Well, she just
Yeah.
said Closing the Gap.
Now, Sister Denise, she has index cards, so she may be able to, well, I don't know if she has them handy, but yeah, it's in Closing the Gap.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Page 100.
Oh.
Thank you.
Page 134. I'm giving you all the page numbers. Page 424. page 425. And that's it. Those page numbers all talk about the whispering devil.
Can you say them again? Brother Luke, say them again, please?
Sure. Page 100, page 134, page 424, and page 425. Are we good?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
right.
sir.
So a mathematical way, which means according to mathematics, which is exact or precise. So we're dealing with what's called the science of numbers. So we're learning about our miserable condition, but we're learning about it through the language of mathematics. So what should we learn? So we are to learn and gain a thorough knowledge of our mind or emotional states according to the science of numbers, which means according to their arrangement, their structure, and their measurements. So the problem book may be like a self-auditing book based on mathematics, astronomy, and physics. So when you look at the book Self-Analysis, written by Brother L. Ron Hubbard, Self-Analysis is a book you can use to do processing on yourself. You're not auditing engrams, but what you're doing is you're doing like lock scanning. You're going back and you're going through what's called pleasure moments. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
sir.
Okay. So if we have that same understanding with our supreme wisdom and our problem book, then we can do the same thing using what the Savior gave to us.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So now let's look at atmosphere real quick. Atmosphere is the gaseous envelope of a celestial body, or metaphorically speaking, a surrounding influence or environment. So our home is an atmosphere. Our attitude can be like an atmosphere, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. It's an intriguing or singular tone. There goes the word tone, effect, or appeal. So whenever we are on a tone scale, that tone can be an atmosphere. It can be a mood or temper. So now when you look at, if we look at 2.0 and down, apathy and grief and hostility and anger, these are different atmospheres. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then when I looked at the word atmosphere, I took, I did what Mother Tanetta might have done. I took the P out and put it in front of Atmos and got the word Patmos here. Speaking about my own mind being in an aberrated state, and I have 4 laborers that are in my own mind, and these are the 4 devils I have to kill. I have a doctor, a minister, a nurse, and a cremator in my own thinking. And then we did a Zoom class about a month ago where we broke down the island of Patmos and how it represents the aberrated mind. Does anyone remember that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We looked at each laborer and how each one of those laborers represents a different aspect of our thinking.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, I didn't take this out. There was a video to go with this, but for some reason I couldn't put it in here. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says in The Time of What Must Be Done, number 10, he says, rain makes the atmosphere too heavy with moisture, causing sickness. I just saw a hand go up. Sister Anya.
Oh, the last slide made me think of the phrase "misery loves company."
Yes.
So that in environment that you can put around yourself is sometimes the people you hang out with that create that you continue that not just in yourself, but you create that atmosphere with the people around you. And so oftentimes when we're down and sad and or you know, just want to be in a, to use a better word, a funk. You know, you seek people who are in that same spirit at the time to hang out with.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was all.
Mhm. No, and that's one reason why in Dianetics you're taught you never give sympathy, because sympathy is a justification for weakness. That's the way they phrase it. Sympathy is a justification for weakness. So, you know, certain things happen. We post things on Facebook and Instagram, and we're trying to garner sympathy. But what it does is it actually is like glue that keeps us in that funk.
All right.
We should never give sympathy. We can be compassionate, we can be understanding, but we don't give sympathy. Then he says, so the wheel also has the power to create its own atmosphere as any other planet is able to do. Now notice the word planet, is able to do. And by its being able to create its own atmosphere, it is able to go anywhere in space it desires because it is not dependent on power from the earth. Now, doesn't the minister say that wherever he goes, he brings his own atmosphere with him?
Yes, sir.
And that's what we have to do. We have to bring our own atmosphere with us. Unfortunately, some of us bring our own atmosphere with us. But if you study the different planets, each planet has a different atmosphere. And this perhaps will be for next week, where we show how each planet's atmosphere represents a different emotional tone. But I know Venus, based on what the scientists have said, it looks pretty on the outside. That's why they call it Venus. But under the clouds, it's one of the hottest places in the solar system.
Wow.
Could say it's kind of like the Black woman. No, and I'm not saying that in a way to make fun. I'm saying beautiful on the outside, but under the surface, there's a lot of emotions that are boiling underneath. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But it could be women in general, beautiful on the outside, but under the surface, there's some scientists that say that the atmosphere of it rains. I think it says it rains sulfuric acid. So beautiful on the outside, but once you get past that cloud covering, there's a whole lot of stormy weather underneath. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Reminds me of that saying, a woman scorned, something like
Yes.
that.
Yes. So I didn't say that to be funny. I'm saying that to be real. Below the surface, each one of these planets, I think, can actually teach us something about ourselves, and that's going to be my next assignment. Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
I was listening to the minister in that tape. He speaks of something of this nature. We are the overcomers.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, he says that death again is an illusion. When you die in the way of God, because I write it down. There is no death to you. I mean, the flesh go back to the earth enough, but that's the only reality we know right now is the flesh. But there is another reality beyond this. And then he goes, I have had outer body experience. I don't know about anybody else, where I literally see places I have never been before. And I thought that was right in alignment, how he bring his own atmosphere, and he also bring things to himself, and we can do the same. That's what came to my mind. I wrote that down yesterday.
Well, praise be to Allah. Thank you for that one. That's a jewel right there. Some of us bring our atmosphere, but our atmosphere is stormy, which we're going to get to in a minute. So when we can create our own atmosphere, our own mindset, we can travel anywhere on the mental plane. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And if we understand, a couple of weeks ago, we dealt with brain frequency. When you deal with beta, beta level is a state of like where we are now around beta. And when you deal with what's called high beta is emotions. And the scientists say that when you're in upper beta, you can't learn anything. But if you can get past the beta and upper beta, you get to what's called gamma level thought. And they say gamma level thought is the higher consciousness. So in the language of what we have, if you can rise above that emotion into the mind and thinking of God, that represents that atmosphere that Sister Ania was speaking about before. That beta level is the cloud level. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So beta level is where we are now. That cloud level is high beta, and then gamma would be getting out into the universe. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, this is for you, Sister Ania, but this is for everybody. This is a lesson in meteorology.
So I know you're not with me every night here. So every night on Fox 9 at this time,
Yes.
we like to turn to Scott and gives a little closer
Closer
look.
look.
Yeah, he teaches us something usually. Actually, for that matter, Scott, a lot of times it's a weather whiz kid who teaches the older folks here something older.
So what are we going to learn tonight, Scott?
What are we going to learn tonight? Well, some of the basics to weather. What makes nice weather? What makes stormy weather? That's simple, right? Here's the question from Eagle Middle School.
Hi, my name is Jody Gilbertson, and I go to Eagle Middle School. And my weather question is, why is it that high weather pressure is associated with fair winds and clear skies, but low pressure is associated with dark clouds and precipitation?
Great question. So we're talking high pressure and low pressure. She's saying, why is high pressure associated with clear skies and light winds, and low pressure associated with storms and rain? Well, we're going to put it together this way. You have to look at weather as three-dimensional. That's the key here. That was one of the most difficult things when I went to college. When they started talking about the weather in 3 dimensions, I was so used to just staring at weather maps that I'd see in the newspaper here down at the ground. But everything at the ground is occurring by what's happening aloft here. So let's look at the jet stream. This is the jet stream here. This is high and low pressure here. Now you have to understand the water cycle too. Water cycle is as air rises, it will cool and then condense, because it encounters lower pressure. So the higher air rises, the pressure goes from high pressure to low pressure. You get less pressure, less temperature. It cools, condenses, makes clouds. So wherever there's rising air, we get precipitation. This is what's happening in the jet stream aloft. Here we'll have a convergence zone aloft here.
Okay, think of the levels of the tone scale. Okay, think of the levels of the tone scale. This upper area is the high tone, which is producing pressure that's controlling the lower region. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Analytical mind controlling the reactive mind, or the mind of God controlling the body. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the jet stream winds are coming together. So as you push the air together, it has nowhere else to go. It can't go up, so it has to go down. So what happens is we have sinking air, and the air sinks, and it sinks clockwise. So it subsides, as we call it, subsides. As it's sinking, it warms because it encounters the higher pressure near the ground, and that sinking air also causes a big bubble of high pressure to form here. So sinking air near the high pressure warms and dries, and so you don't have any cloud cover out. We had that pretty much.
So we're in our right state of mind. Sinking, you could look at sinking from the perspective of bowing, prostration, humility. So when we're humble, what happens? That humility goes from the heavens to the earth and causes what? Clear skies. Does that make sense?
It's a form of influence.
It's that pressure above is influencing going down and producing clear weather. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now watch what happens when the pressure starts in the lower region, low desire, low tone scale, and travels up. Watch what happens.
In the day today. As suggestions going on, it'll encounter an area where it diverges aloft, and so it separates the air here. We can't have a void. We can't make a vacuum of no air. So something has to replace the air right here, and so air comes up from the ground. So what happens is high pressure now has been over here. So that wind comes out of high pressure. It goes into low pressure counterclockwise. It gets to the middle with nowhere else to go, and it rises to fill this void right here. And so near low pressure, we have rising air, and rising air will then cool and condense and make clouds and precipitation. So you basically have rising air causing clouds and rain.
So when you have a void, an empty place in the upper region, what happens? This void pulls from the ground up. So when we're empty up here, whatever is down low takes the place and brings up the precipitation, which produces the storm clouds. Does that sound like it makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Sister Shayla, you look like you might have a aha moment there.
I did. I absolutely did.
Okay. So we're
Because
using,
I had it that, no, we're pressing for time, another day. Yeah, it's totally different now. Thank you.
okay,
Well, but Lukman, what I'm saying is that when we have a void there, and we can either let the negative fill it or the positive fill it. When we let the negative fill it, that's what happens, what he just said. When we let the low tones fill that void, that's what happens. The storms come.
yes.
But
Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
but there's one thing different for here is that most of us don't know this, don't understand, we never had Dianetics before. Not this group, but most humans don't know this technology. So they're not even aware what's happening in that realm. They just know like, oh, this is how I am. This is how I always been. But
Right.
we identify with this. It's clear. Thank you.
Mhm. So now, when you look at page 312 of Closing the Gap, this helps us to better understand the words of the Most High Elijah Muhammad, where he says, when you study the plant life and the insect life and the nature behind, and I'm paraphrasing, the nature behind the natural laws behind things, this is the language of a scientist. So can you imagine, you talk to someone, and this is generally what I try to do when I speak to someone, I try to find out, what is your background? So once I find out their background, then I try to speak their language. And the Most High Elijah Muhammad said, when you give a baby a bottle, you put a little Islam in it. So now a scientist who studies weather, I can speak to them about a certain aspect of meteorology, but at the same time, I can kind of put some Dianetics in there and say, you know what, that the mind operates the same way. And they say, what do you mean? Well, and then explain it in such a way that you use the meteorology as a demo kit to explain how the mind operates. So would that not imply that everything in the universe is describing how our mind operates?
Yes, sir.
Sir?
So would that mean that this whole universe is a book for Sister Shayla? This is her book. For Sister Charlotte, the universe is her book. We all have to read the book to find and put it in the language that we know, correct?
Yes, sir. Wow.
So when you look out into the universe, who are you looking at?
Myself.
Yeah.
You're looking at yourself, not your physical self. The physical self is just the vessel we use to travel. The same essence in the universe is the same essence that's in that physical form that has the name Sister Shayla, but the physical form is not us. So when you look into the universe, you're looking at an outer representation of who you are from the standpoint of your essence. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Just another way of looking at reality, correct?
Wow,
Yes,
all
sir.
those atoms are going off. Wow. Wow.
Sister Anya.
My hand down.
Okay, I hope we have time. I said, I would try to hold a bit. Okay, as you were explaining all of that, different parts of the Quran kept coming up. One of them being chapter 94, the expansion,
Okay.
where it says, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, have we not expanded for thee thy breast and removed from thee thy burden, which weighed down thy back, and exalted for thee thy mention? Surely with difficulty is ease, with difficulty is surely ease. So when thou art free from anxiety, work hard and make thy Lord thy exclusive object. So I'll just use that particular one. As you were talking about the high pressure, the low pressure, the high pressure moving clockwise and the low pressure moving counterclockwise. And the fact that if a void forms in the upper atmosphere, then that low things from that low pressure are pulled up into the upper area. And so my mind was thinking that the goal is not so much that to say, oh, let's not, if we prevent the low pressure from forming, then we'll always have sunny skies and beautiful days. Our life is not like that. We go through that trough, the high part of the, you know, the waves go up and down. We have good days, we have bad days. We have difficulty, and then we have periods of ease. But it made me look at the expansion in a little different way, that somebody said something about you know, like the sun is out, we're having a good time, and so we're not paying attention to that negative side or the negative things within ourselves. So we get to a state where, let's just say we get clear, you know, you reach a state of clear, you've cleared all of that rubbish out. And so people will make the statement, oh, I'm clear. You know, I've gotten rid of all of my engrams, locks, secondaries, etc. But in the moment that we say that, the very next day, we have new experiences. And if we're not careful, if we're not paying attention, then that low pressure is already starting to form if we have, you know, losses and painful experiences. And if we don't clear them out in a timely fashion, then that low pressure starts to mount again, which can later on wreak havoc in our lives. So it made me think of this: surely with difficulty is ease, with difficulty is surely ease, in that it's not that you won't have these dips and lows in our life, but if we study Allah, He has given us those things that if we are obedient to them, will help us go through the difficulty easier, so that we won't have to hit rock bottom low, so that we won't have that void formed in the high part of our tone scale, where we have to pull up all of this gobbledygook from that low pressure state. Okay, let me stop there, because now I want to go to other parts of the Quran, so we don't have time. So
well, make sure you write down all your cognitions, because that's gaining back your theta, your attention units. And then in time, if and when you share that, it'll help the rest of us get out of the muck and the mire. That was a correction from Sunday. We were saying muck and mar, and then after the meeting, I was like, oh wait, no, it's muck and mire. But I think mire comes from the same root word, because remember we were talking about mar and mara.
yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make that correction. It's muck and mire, but yeah, help clean us up all from the muck and mire that we're in right now. Everyone good so far?
Yes,
sir.
yes,
All right,
sir.
let's land this plane because it is time. Atmosphere and Dianetics. In Dianetics, in Science or Survival, it says probably the worst thing that can happen to a psychotic is to be placed in the atmosphere normally provided for him by the state. Only a sane, healthy environment where he gets proper exercise and where he is unrestimulative, individuals around him could do much to improve his condition. As a chaplain that has worked for Department of Corrections, I can tell you that when you walk into a prison, that prison is a demo kit for the aberrated mind. I mean, it was like, if anyone has ever read the book Dante's Inferno, walking into a state correctional facility is like walking into hell. That is the aberrated mind made real, and everything around you is demons, demon circuits, locks, key. It's crazy. So what makes
So the aberrated mind on steroids, huh?
oh, sister, you don't understand. And that's why it's so important that anyone that becomes a chaplain, because there are times I would bring that home and my mind would start, my mood would change, because when I saw how individuals were treated in prison and to see how certain things are tolerated, you can't help but to be stimulated from that.
Right.
So individuals that work as chaplains, or any individual that works in the capacity of helping other people through difficult times, you have to get Dianetic auditing, because you can be like, I can be clear, but that's only cleared from this point going backward. I can take on new stuff and I'm not clear no more. And then I can be right back where I was before. Aberrated is all outdoors, because now I got new aberrations. Okay. Says the sun draws the water up into the earth's rotation, which is called gravitation, in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. This is a formula. This can be used in so many different things. Okay. So when you look at a fine mist, we're looking at perceptics. You know, when you look at the study, and I'll give you this example, and anyone who has been in the math class, if this happened, you can bear witness. Has there been any points where we have gone over mathematical concepts and we've gone over, and then finally it clicked and it made sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So over and over again was the gathering of the wisdom up into the mind's rotation. And then eventually it distilled back, correct?
Yes, sir.
You said, oh, I understand that now. See, this is more than just something about the sun, moon, and the rotation. This is a formula that can be applied in many aspects of life. It says, but as this mist ascends higher and increasing with other mists of water in different currents of the atmosphere, until when she becomes heavier than gravitation, then she distills back to the earth in the form of drops of water or drops of ice, which depends on how heavy the mist was and the current of air was in. So our understanding is based on how heavy our understanding becomes and the state of mind that we have. So what gathers in our mind distills back or becomes manifested based on the current of our thinking or emotional state. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Okay. There are some layers or currents of air real cold and warm, and some are swift and changeable. So when something is cold, it means marked by lack of warmth of normal human emotion, friendliness, or compassion. So could we say that that represents aberration?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Okay. Warm means marked by readily showing affection, gratitude, cordiality, sympathy. We have two different aspects of the tone scale right here.
Mhm.
So if you're aberrated, and as you gather stuff up into an aberrated mind, then it distills back. Everyone's out to get you. Everyone, men ain't no good. Women ain't no good. Negroes ain't no good. It's always bad. So everything you gather will distill back based on the state of your thinking, correct?
Yes, sir.
But when your mind is warm, if you haven't watch how the minister defended Kanye West. He allowed the wisdom to distill back in such a way that he defended a statement that was made by Kanye. And once the way he defended it, everyone in the room was like, no, that made sense. You got it. He was the defense attorney. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The minister explained in his own terms the meaning slavery was a choice, or slavery is a choice. But the way the minister explained it hit dead center. It was 100% right and exact the way the minister explained it. So the minister has this ability to take and gather information. He might be angry, but he allows it to distill back in a way that allows things to grow. Because if you put ice on the plant, the ice will damage the plant, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but water allows the plant to grow.
Mhm.
Okay.
You can put ice on orchid though.
Huh?
on an orchid, you can put a cube of ice.
No, I'm not saying, because the ice will melt. I understand that. But if hail comes, what will the hail do to an orchid?
Oh, it will kill it
It'll tear
immediately.
it up
Right, immediately.
immediately. And then it says that swift means moving or capable of moving with great speed. Rule number 8 tells us quickness and fast moving, correct?
Right, after the morning time.
Okay. And this is a quality of a cleared mind. Your analytical ability increases speed. You think more quickly. And you'll find this, Sister Tina, that you've read this in self-analysis, correct?
What's that?
The ability of the mind to work quicker as you clear out the madness. I think it's in chapter 1 of self-analysis.
Um,
Do you remember self-analysis where it tells you a test, hold a dollar bill and have someone you drop
oh,
it?
yes, drop it and your reflexes will catch it, right?
I think that's was that chapter 1 or was that the introduction?
Yes, sir. I think so. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Mm-hmm.
So some currents are swift, but then some are changeable. The word changeable means what? Fickle.
Mm-hmm.
Changeable in moods. So you see how question number 8 could be describing the mind?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Cold and
sir.
warm, swift and changeable.
Yes.
And the word variable also means aberrant. So again, cold and warm, swift and changeable can be used to represent states of mind. I'm trying to think if I have time to cover the refuge prayer. Does anyone have maybe 10 more minutes?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yes, sir.
If not, I tell you what, if not, if you don't have the 10 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and try to finish this just so I can post it. That way, those that have to leave, you can come back. Find it on the YouTube. I'll send the link out and then you can watch the remainder on YouTube. Would that work?
That would
Yeah.
work.
Okay. The refuge prayer. That we're gonna connect it to Dianetics. So this is the Arabic. This is taken from the book called The Religion of Islam. So you have the Arabic on the far left, you have the transliteration in the middle, and then you have the English on the right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. We're not gonna translate all this, but I just wanted to pull out the key words: refuge, anxiety, grief, lack of strength, laziness, cowardice, niggardliness, being overpowered by debt, and oppression of men. Okay, these are the key points in the refuge prayer. We're going to connect these to Dianetics, and that's where we're going to end it for today. So when we say, I seek thy refuge, what we're saying is, I seek refuge or take refuge in. It means I seek, means to go in search of, to try and discover, to try to acquire or gain. It comes from the root word, which is, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it, which means to lead. So you're asking Allah, you know, I'm trying to discover, I'm in search of something that's gonna help me overcome all these other things that are to follow. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, just this morning, I had put this ayat here, but I didn't know why I put this ayat here. I'm like, why did I put that? So I went and read it and I said, oh, I got to put this in real quick because this will lead us to something to think about. If you go to Holy Quran, Surah 61, ayat 10, it says, "O you who believe, shall I lead you to a merchandise which will deliver you from a painful chastisement?" So I'm going to lead you, and I think I'm going to lead you to a merchandise. I'm going to lead you to something that's going to deliver you from a painful chastisement. And the word merchandise, I spelled it with a Z there by mistake, but the Arabic word is tajara, to trade or to do business. So I'm gonna lead you to something, a type of trade or business that's gonna deliver you from a painful chastisement. Now remember, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in The Divine Destruction of America, he said grief was gonna be one of the things that Allah was gonna use to chastise us.
Grief.
So if Allah is gonna use grief as a tool of chastisement, and then the minister gives us, I'm going to give you a merchandise that will deliver you from the painful chastisement, then would that not imply that the minister will give us something that will allow us to get past the grief that's going to take place during the judgment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then I remembered in our lesson, it says, after he has devoted 35 or 50 years trying to learn and do like the original man, he could come and do trading among us. In Savior's Day 2011, one of the things that Minister Farrakhan says, he says he found something 35 years ago. And that lecture was done, I believe that was the first year that the Church of Scientology had set up workshops at our Savior's Day conventions. Do y'all remember that?
Yes.
Now, the fact that he said 35 years ago, I remember thinking of this after he has devoted 35, 50 years trying to learn and do like the original, he'd come and do trading among us. It was as if they were coming doing trading among us, giving us the tech. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. When you said merchandise, I always think of merchandise as paying for something. Merchandise is something that you pay for. And in the technology, we pay for the extension courses. We pay for the books and we pay for the extension courses. And I remember I was trying not to pay for the extension course, the self-analysis extension course. I was trying to, think of myself doing it without, because I got the book and I got the book as a gift. And I said, well, I don't have to pay for the extension course. I can just read the book. But then I don't know if it was you or Brother Scott I was talking to trying to get some type of guidance on this. And one of you said I should invest in myself and take the extension course. And so that's merchandise. It's an investment. So I invested in myself and I'm so glad I did, because I'm learning from those who know better than me. So I would not have any misunderstoods. It was you, Brother Lukman, because you talked about having misunderstoods and all of that. If I didn't. Yes, sir. So that's what made me think of merchandise and investing in myself by purchasing the extension course and going through it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Why not invest in yourself? And I'm gonna play this clip and then we'll pick up on the refuge prayer perhaps next week. I'm just going to play this clip of the minister and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Now I found something in the Church of Scientology where they developed a technique and a technology that is called auditing, where a person can be helped to pull things up in their minds that they may even deny presently that it exists in their lives. This auditing process helps us to find those memories and bring them up. The auditor is something like a therapist, not a therapist, because therapists talk, auditors listen.
Right.
And when they listen and not talk, they help you to come up with that which would relieve you of your own pain by bringing you back to it, causing you to face it, confront it, handle it, that you may be free from it. Now, listen, this is a part of the lecture that I really want you to pay attention to, especially those of you who want to judge me. If you notice, sometimes in the church, and we have great pastors here, who when you preach, you see someone in the audience shout, "Oh, I'm not making no mockery." What happened? You say, well, the person got the Holy Spirit. Yes. But also, the pastor touched something of existing pain in that individual, and they scream or emote because the pastor's words has touched the pain but not relieved it. There are things in your life, and I'm talking to everybody in this audience, and all those of us who are sitting up in front of people. There are things in our lives that have been done to us from the time we were babies. A word from a mother that wasn't thinking, a father that didn't care, a teacher that was off the mark. They say things that become commands, but they're here, stored in the subconscious mind. There's a particular brother. He's a great teacher in the nation. But I notice some of us can't handle someone who challenges. Everybody that challenges our authority, we see them as an enemy. But when we look closer, the brother was abused when he was a child. I'm talking to all of us. Boys and girls being abused, being raped when they were children. They think they got over it, but it's here. Bring them in an organization, put them in authority, and all of a sudden they got to prove macho. Always trying to say, I'm a real man. They are real men. But the abuse that they suffered, they have to be relieved of that in order to become the real man that they are born to be. Any woman in this audience who has been molested, who has been raped by a father, by an uncle, by a friend, by a relative, college don't free you. Church don't free you. It gives you an emotional escape. But to relieve you and give you a chance to live. When I learned that my brother had been abused, I started looking back at some of those in the nation who were great men, but all.
Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Oh, no, it can wait till you finish the clip.
Okay, all right.
It had to prove their manhood. And I started wondering what happened as they were growing up. What happened to them in a foster home? What happened when they're taken away from their parents? See, these are the things that we as a people suffer just a few generations coming up out of slavery. Yes, sir. And the pain is here in the recesses of our minds. And we have a college degree, but not whole. We are the CEO of a company, but we're not whole. We're standing in the pulpit, but we're not whole. We're called senator, congressman. We're called by these big titles, but we're not whole. So I looked into something that I heard about 35 years ago by the man who was my first minister, and I was his captain in Boston, Massachusetts. I met him again when the nation fell, and I was moved to Chicago, but then he was a Scientologist. And he began telling me about auditing. I heard what he said. I liked it because I love science. And I love when we can put scientific law, physical law, and the counterbalance of spiritual law and make them harmonize. I like that. I hate, listen to me good. I hate spiritual cowards. Who don't want to look at things and who feel that because I have something great, I can improve what I have by finding something that will make me a better representative of what I
Go
represent.
ahead. That's right.
Bear with me. Yes. See, the Scientologists, they call this process auditing. But we who are Muslims, we who are scriptural people, we don't use the term engrams. In theology, we call it the exorcising of demons. We're going there today. Yes, sir. Now look at this. Muslims, here we go. We start to pray. All Muslims say these words before they make their prayers. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. I seek refuge in Allah against the accursed Satan. And nobody in the room but you. Satan could be lurking in your own heart and in your own mind. See, Peter started talking stupid to Jesus.
I'll go ahead and end it there, but I would recommend everyone go back and revisit Savior's Day 2011. The remainder of this we'll do at another time, because the time is, I didn't realize just how much past time we went. Sister Anya, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Real quickly, it was just a cognition, and I thank you for playing this. It took me back to Study Guide 19B, when the minister is talking about us making Allah sufficient. And it puzzled me as to why it seemed like he suddenly switched to sisters having problems with her lieutenant, with the grumpy lieutenant. And it just, at the time when we were going over it in the study group, it puzzled me. But you're playing what you just played, it took me right back to that and just cleared it up, because of that engramic state that we're all in. And all of that has to be cleared out of us. So, and I'm not going to go into it, but it was just a little aha moment for me.
Okay. Praise be to Allah. You had your aha moment for the day.
Yes, sir.
All right. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. I was just wondering if you could go back to the first slide where you put up problem number 7. I just want to screen shoot that slide.
Okay, first slide. When I put up question number 7, I have to do it this way. This will make it a lot quicker. Let's see, question number 7. There we go. Right there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. I got it.
You're welcome. Any final thoughts, concerns, questions, comments, corrections, cognitions, or wins before we close it out?
Well, I have a win. I finished my self-analysis extension course yesterday.
All right, now.
Yay.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Congratulations.
However,
All praises due to Allah.
however, yes, all praise is due to Allah. However, I got the data, but I did not do the list. And they said I could do it that way because I handed in my extension course, got that out the way. So I have the data. So I have the theory. Now I'm going back to how to use this disc and do that all over again to get the practice now.
Yes.
Practice
Yes, yes.
takes time, and I wanted to get a lesson in every week, so I couldn't do that and do the practice at the same time. The practice is going to take me some time. So yes, sir, that's a win for me.
Practice will take a lifetime, sister, because, well, hopefully it won't take a lifetime, but we're always gonna have to work on this aberrated mind until we get clear.
Yes, sir.
I would just recommend just be patient with yourself.
Yes,
And
sir.
then what's the next book you're gonna do after that?
Science of Survival,
Yes,
SOS.
ma'am. Wait till you get into that one.
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. I really am. But I probably won't get into that till next year, till I get this pretty much under my under control with doing the lists, going through the list. I need to get on a particular schedule. I'm doing at least 15 minutes a day.
I'll just give you a little quick snippet of one thing he says in I think the first chapter. He talks about the 19 million insane. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Wow.
19 million.
How did he come up with 19 million?
19.
2 million Indians.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
To my sister, just a word of caution. If you can go in, don't do science survival if you can go in and do that course in New York, it would be much, much more productive and for yourself. I just wanted to make a request, Brother Lukeman, that if the devil ever come to try to take you away from us, that you resist, that we will keep you in our prayers for being such an excellent teacher, thanking Allah for the brain that he created in you and the heart for you to share your knowledge with each and every one of us. So thank you. This was an extraordinary day.
All praise is due to Allah. The devil can't do anything that Allah doesn't permit. So
it's true. True.
But thank you, Sister Shayla. I definitely appreciate that. And I know the more I empty my cup, the more Allah blesses me to receive, and then the more I'm going to give to the believers until we can just continue to do and follow the instructions that the minister gave us. He wanted us to study the tech, marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme technology. And this is just my gift that I give back, trying to just be a good student. Praise be to Allah for everything. All right. Sister Charlotte, so how was your first class?
Ooh, revolutionary. I've learned so much. And the segment that you did with the meteorologist stuck out to me the most. When I was in high school and early college, I dabbed in meteorology. I got frustrated because I didn't really understand. I'm like, but that segment that he did and how you brought in the teachings and the Dianetics went off like atoms to me. And I'm like, now I'm going to have to find a way to borrow this. And I've been trying to work on a lecture. My minister has always said, I'm putting you on the rostrum, and I have been resisting for years. But that segment on that piece that you did went off to me, and I'm trying to find a way to make something my own and to get what I need to continue to improve. So this was awesome.
Praise be to Allah. Here's your homework assignment.
Yes, sir.
There's a lecture that the minister did called "The Man in the Mission."
Okay.
Have you ever watched that lecture?
I can't say that I have.
Ooh.
I'm sure that I have, but
You'll understand it when you watch it.
the man.
Called "The Man in the Mission," and the minister talks about how when you find your purpose, it's like love at first sight. You find what you're born to do, and then you do it, he says, effortlessly.
Yes, sir.
And for me, teaching is just what Allah has given me. And, you know, it happens. And I know it's not me. I know that this is just a gift that Allah has blessed me to receive. So now you have to find your purpose and your voice and put it in the fine language that you know.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
When you do that lecture, make sure you record it so you can, share it with the rest of us, so we can gain from your wins as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So with that being said and done, family, again, as always, thank you for your time and your attention. I will in the future try to shorten these Zoom presentations and not really take advantage of the time, but being around the believers is something that I value. This is like Savior's Day every day, as I say. I value your time and being around the believers. If I am home in time this Sunday, because the brothers are going to Chicago this weekend, if I can make it back in time,
yes, sir,
I will strive to have the part 2 to what we just did on Sunday. If not, inshallah, we will all be back again on Wednesday, November the 9th, and I'll do the next part to this. I'll go complete going through what's called the refuge prayer and connecting the refuge prayer to the tech of Dianetics. Everyone good, family?
Yes, sir.
All right, praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir.
Would anyone like to close us out in prayer? If not, I will go ahead and close us out. Let me check these real quick. Okay. Also, this will be posted on the YouTube channel. I'll send the link out. And that way, if you want to review it, study it, share it, all praise is due to Allah. That being said, let's go ahead and close out in prayer. Attention prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master of the day of judgment, which we now live, the alone that we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray if they've heard thy teaching. Ameen.
Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum, family.
Walaikum salam. Thank you, sir.
Alaikum
You're
salam.
welcome. Thank you.
Brother Lukman, I just wanted to share that I had to sign out of work because I couldn't pull myself away from listening to you. Like, oh my God, I'm trying to find a way to pull away. I just couldn't. So I had to sign out of work, and I'm going to have to make that time up at the end of my day. But this was beautiful. So I thank you.
I hope we didn't cost you no money.
No, sir. As long as I get my 8 hours in, no matter how it works out, I can piecemeal it. So it's good, but thank you.
But just a quick question. Do you have an idea of how you want to organize your lecture?
No, sir. I'm not even sure if I even really want to do it. that was just something in the back of my mind as a goal that I want to do before I leave this earth, but nothing, I don't even know how to put together a lecture. That's why it's been taking so long. So
Okay.
I don't have a clue.
I'm gonna give you 2 quick points. I don't mean to hold you, but here's 2 quick points you can take.
Yes,
with
sir.
you. You're saying you don't know how. When I first started going into the prison, back in, I think it was 2001, I was not one that did too much public speaking. And I was asked to cover, because at the time there was a brother by the name of Brother Salam. He was the only prison chaplain representing the Nation of Islam for the whole state of New York. So he had to travel. He was responsible for all the prisons in New York.
Yes, sir.
So in asking us to assist, he asked me to go to one of the prisons. And the verse that came to my mind, and this verse came to my mind years ago when I first started teaching, is that when you stand before men, don't worry about what you will say. Just call on your God. He will put his words in your mouth.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to worry about it. You'll if this is your path, if this is your purpose, you'll learn how to do it. The God will guide you in it. And by you not being sure, another quick story, and then I'll shut up. Back in 2001, I was actually in the process. I was working as a paramedic, and I was in the process of going to school to become a physician's assistant. That's the path I was going in. By some crazy circumstance, I was asked to cover down for a friend of mine. To this day, I think he did it on purpose. He couldn't make it. He wanted me to cover down and teach at this after school program, GED, mathematics and science. So yeah, I'll cover down for you, no problem. So I'm in there and I'm teaching. And then the owner came up and said, my birth name is Anthony. She said, Brother Anthony, just keep teaching, the cameras are coming up. I said, what do you mean the cameras are coming up? So as I'm teaching, the news came in and they started filming everything. And then I realized in teaching the mathematics and the science, I had found my path and my purpose. And I decided not to go to medical school. I decided to pursue academics that would support teaching. The point of what I'm trying to tell you is your path will find you, even though you're not looking for it. Whatever you're born to do, you can't get away from it. It'll find you. And if it's meant for you to teach, and that's where Allah wants you to be, that's where you're going to be. Just enjoy the ride.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
But watch that video, The Man and the Mission. Go ahead, Sister Ania.
I just wanted to say to Sister Charlotte, the fact that this is just my feeling about it is the fact that the thought came up in your mind and you shared it with us, leads me to believe that this is something that that it is for you to do just that, to put this lecture together, and that this class today was the stimulus for that for you. And I think there's something, as we mentioned earlier, about just the passing idea. If you don't do anything with it, it will just become a passing idea and slip away from you. But I think your comment today, it brought it more to the forefront and means that it is something for you to do, and that you can only be guaranteed success with it if you put some energy to it and go ahead and produce it. So I challenge you, my sister, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, family. I'm looking forward to hearing that lecture.
Inshallah.
All
Thank
right. All right, family. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.